Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special Moon News edition of the Thursday night show. Yes, as I did a TED Excellence yesterday with Tom Connors, I thought it would be a little bit repetitive to do another TEDx the next day in a row. And besides, I need a little change up, need a little variety in my life, a little diversity, if you can believe it. And so I decided to do something different tonight just for fun, and also to distract from all of the hectic, stressful, partisan stuff in the news today, because I've had enough of that. Maybe you have too. So let's talk some moon news. It's been a while since I've done a moon digest on what's going on in my backyard. But before I get to that, who's joining me on this beautiful Thursday evening? Mike R., good evening. Kiro Soldier, thank you so much. Let's start this off right, shall we, Scribe? Well, nothing better than a Kiro Soldier on a Thursday. Almost sounds like I'm making a meal of you or something. Noah Sencio, good evening. Matthew James, good evening. Keeverdam, good evening. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the GoFundMe or fundraiser links for our friends Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Arriaga, Rhonda, and Blind Press. If you guys can take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can, share those out on social media. That would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time. And thank you, Keeverdam. As always, Advocatus Diaboli, good evening. Shady Grin, good evening. Tony Giff, good evening. Cynic, good evening. Adabisi, good evening. Who else is here? Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Vader35, good evening. Attorney Eris, good evening. Faustonia, good evening to you. Tier Alexander, the Scourge, good evening. Derek LaRue, thank you, Derek, so much, as always, for your continued generosity and support. Very much appreciate it. And giving a special super chat thanks, as I am now able to do, and as anybody can do in the chat. So thank you, Derek. Hope you're having a good evening. Hope you enjoy the show. Funtime Bats, good evening. Chicago Mike, good evening. Unfair Ophelia, good evening. Angelverse, good evening to you. Who else is here? Asan, good evening. The Best Remy, good evening. God Ready, the one true God of all rats, good evening. Hey, Scribe, want to hear a joke? Sure. Proceed. I've got my rim shot sound effect ready. Urcule DeStefano, good evening. Shell D, good evening. Corey Suzuki, good evening. Attack Alpaca, good evening. Good golly, everybody's here tonight. Cryptic, thank you so much, Cryptic. China Atoll. Yeah, they can be. Pretty much, concentration camps and things. But hey, they really want to get to the moon. We'll talk about that momentarily. Jonathan Peterson, good evening. And Pissed Off Shih Tzu, good evening. All right, now I'll wait for that joke from the one true God of rats. But yes, I got four stories. Yes, 4 stories tonight. We have China, we have clocks, we have conspiracy theories, and we have desert training, all pertaining to the moon. Now, here we go. All right, let's see. What do you call it when you get your wife pregnant? 18 years of financial servitude at minimum? I don't know. What would you call it? Putting a load in the washer. Oh, I have a feeling some of the ladies out there might not appreciate that. But I appreciate the joke either way. Thank you. Thank you, Ratty. Appreciate it. And Chicago Mike, thank you so much. After the events of the day, I can admit I miss Lords of the Night. Well, yeah, it's one of those days where it might have been good to have a little catharsis, a little smarminess in the news of the day. But I'm sure Ranting Monkey will have a stream tonight to talk all about it. Yeah, it's one of those days. But I thought a little distraction, little difference, something else to put our minds on for a little bit, because it's what's happening now is going to last for days and weeks. So hey, might as well get a break in here sometime. Also, Bridget, in Moon News, I have a meeting next week about a future career in space robotics. Ooh, space robotics. You are a proselytizer of the future. Speaking of the future, let's talk about the moon matters to China. Yes, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. China was sending a mission to the moon. They have some long-term plans for building buildings on the moon using moon bricks and other such things. But where are they now and what's going on? China's Chang'e 6 moon mission was launched on May 3rd. It reached lunar orbit a few days later and began waiting for sunrise over its landing site on the moon's far side. Chang'e 6 is named after the Chinese goddess of the moon, and it will land on Sunday in a crater called Apollo, an ancient double-ringed walled plain caused by an asteroid smashing into the young moon. Apollo has been heavily damaged by subsequent impacts and in many places covered with lava flows and sprinkled with particles from newer impacts. It is, as Buzz Aldrin said, a magnificent desolation. It is a region of great geological significance since it contains rocks from the moon's lower crust and the deeper mantle, a treasure trove of planetary history. Chang'e 6 hopes to bring back rocks from the far side of the Earth, from the far side to Earth. Testing the composition of the soil could help narrow down theories about how the moon and solar system formed. But Chang'e also plans to raise the Chinese Communist flag over the crater, and the symbolism of this has not gone unnoticed. The flag of the CCP will preside over a site named after the U.S. moon landings. Nearby are craters named after fallen American astronauts, specifically the crew of ill-fated Space Shuttle Columbia. It's a symbolic gesture, certainly, but also a literal one, for the far side of the moon, which never sees Earth, belongs to China, the only country to have landed there, and the only country since the former USSR in 1976 to have brought back samples from the moon. So China has gone to the dark side of the moon. And there they found Pink Floyd, and apparently lining it up with Wizard of Oz works perfectly. Anyway, China has realized what the United States forgot, at least until recently, that the moon is a special kind of prize. Well, we already conquered it the first time, so they're just getting our seconds. We all see it above us, and when we do, China wants everyone, especially its own people, to think about Chinese ambition and its glorious future, not America's past triumphs. Yes, look up at the moon. See the moon? That's the side America conquered. The side that you can't see? Yeah, China's got that, I guess. There is none of the nostalgia the West... what is this? There is none of the nostalgia the West specializes in here. Okay. The rhetoric China uses is all forward-looking. Quote, to explore the vast cosmos, develop the space industry, and build China into a space power is our eternal dream, unquote, President Xi Jinping has said. Quote, the space dream is part of the dream to make China stronger, unquote. It's true that China seems to care more about the moon than the U.S. does. America has Houston and the Space Coast, but China has Deep Space Science City in Anhui Province, okay, and has cultivated a space zeal among its people that compares with the patriotic fever in the USSR about Yuri Gagarin in 1961. Even during the moon landings, the U.S. never had the kind of national support that China's space effort seems to have. Seems being the operative word, because if China says you will be excited about space program, you will be excited about space program. But okay, to an extent, this is America's own fault. Oh, okay. China is banned by U.S. law from cooperating with NASA or any U.S. company for fear of technological secrets being revealed. Now, there's established precedent for why we might be scared about that. At one time, China hoped to dock its spacecraft, a Russian Soyuz derivative, so not really its spacecraft, but a tacked-on spacecraft from another country, with the International Space Station, and was insulted when permission was refused. But they proceeded independently and sought non-U.S. collaboration, particularly with the 22 nations that form the European Space Agency. Chang'e 6 itself contains equipment from France, Italy, Sweden, and Pakistan. China's Belt and Road Initiative has spread to outer space. I wonder how many extra countries America went to in its initial space program. I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious. I mean, how much extra help did China need as compared to U.S. in making its space program? Anyway, China sees that NASA's Artemis initiative to return humans to the moon is slipping. The Artemis 2 mission plan was to send 4 astronauts around the moon, but it has been delayed by a year and is set for late 2025. Artemis 3, the landing, was set for 1 or 2 years later, but it now seems inevitable that this mission will simply be an Earth orbit test. All right. The human landing could be in 2027 or later. China has said it intends to put its astronauts on the moon by 2030, but those ambitions will probably accelerate as NASA slows down. It's possible. Thank you, Chicago Mike, again. Is it me or is China mooning us now? No, they can't, because nobody can see it. We have to take it on faith they actually landed on the moon because it's the dark side of the moon that nobody ever sees. But they're really proud of that, I guess, where there's no light and it's, even more freezing and inhospitable as the other side of the moon. But, I'm sure everything's fine. I'm sure it's fine. NASA insists publicly that the delays are due only to the need to develop the infrastructure to stay on the moon for extended periods and build a moon base. I have a moon base. I'm right here, guys. You know, my favorite moon base was, at least to this point, in the Captain America and the Avengers arcade game. Red Skull's moon base was like my favorite moon base growing up because it's like this giant circle with this huge space laser on it that Red Skull was threatening to zap different cities around the world unless he got, $1 million or something. I really love that space station. Oh, well. Let's see. It's true that if China carries out a manned Apollo-type mission, it will only be repeating what the U.S. did more than 50 years ago. I know, right? But unlike the USA in the 1970s, once it's landed, China has no intention of turning away from the moon or from space. Okay. And the International Space Station is in its final years. It will be replaced by a series of smaller stations built by private enterprise, but they are still in their very early stages. China's Tiangong or Sky Palace, launched in 2021, is still in assembly phase, but soon it could be the only major space station circling Earth. All right. Then, of course, there are military considerations. In the future, space will play a more active and integrated role. The traditional surveillance orbits will give way to space assets, which can be hidden from view until they are needed. China has already demonstrated unhackable quantum communications from space. They have? Okay. Looking back at the space race between the US and the USSR in the 1960s, it is obvious that progress is made very quickly when there is competition. The major space superpowers are well aware of the urgency, but only China can expand its space exploration free from democratic restrictions. I suppose there is a new space race now, and this time the US might not win. Ooh. Look out, guys. Look out. It's going to be China on the moon. China Moon. Wasn't that the name of a movie? China Moon? Something like that, I think. Back in the 90s or something. Anyway. So that's the latest and greatest, I suppose, on China, and an article that sounds almost propagandistic in China's favor. I don't know. I don't read The Spectator very often, so I don't know what their leanings are, but that is apparently what we have. So there you go. Let's see. What do we got going on in the chat over here? Tier Alexander, I forgot to tell you, I've been fighting with the Chinese for control of the dark side of the moon. They found about my necropolis. You have a necropolis on the dark side of... Wait a second. I've been here for like 8 years. Of course, I never go to the dark side of the moon. It's a lousy part of town. But okay. I guess a necropolis makes sense. All right. Well, I mean, there's like Crater Valley, and there's Sir Adamantine's House of Celestial Sins, and then there's like my moon mansion, and like Dogcat Fox has his, sort of side house, dog house thing. Right? That's where you live. Wowie, wow, wow. Yeah. Well, you just calm down. Stop looking at me like that. Your house is big enough. There's no other dogcat foxes up here to breed with or something. You don't need the extra space. Wowie, wow, wow. Maybe you're just hungry. Anyway, what do we have next? How about clocks on the moon? Or time measurements on the moon? I'm not quite sure yet. This is CNN with some excitement, I guess. Saw this headline today, and I'm curious. But we get a moon clock animation, which I hope doesn't get me in trouble or something. Why scientists say we need to send clocks to the moon, and soon. Ooh, that rhymed, I guess. Perhaps the greatest mind-bending quirk of our universe is the inherent trouble with timekeeping. Seconds tick by ever so slightly faster atop a mountain than they do in the valleys of Earth. There's a scientific explanation for that. Are you going to tell us? No. For practical purposes, most people don't have to worry about those differences. Well, I've been told over and over again the difference is our strength. I seem to be getting a moon frog in my throat. But a renewed space race has the United States and its allies, as well as China, dashing to create permanent settlements on the moon, and that has brought the idiosyncrasies of time once again to the forefront. The idiosyncrasy on the lunar surface, a single Earth day would be roughly 56 microseconds shorter than on our home planet, a tiny number that can lead to significant inconsistencies over time. You mean 56 microseconds times infinity? Yes, I suppose it could. NASA and its internal partners are currently grappling with this conundrum. All right, scientists aren't just looking to create a new time zone on the moon, as some headlines have suggested, says Cheryl Gramling, the Lunar Position, Navigation, and Timing and Standards lead at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland. Rather, the space agency and its partners are looking to create an entirely new time scale or system of measurement that accounts for the fact that seconds tick by faster on the moon, Gramling noted. Oh no, they're going to come up with like a metric system for the moon. A moon trick system. Just what we need. Dang it. Moon trick system. Thank you again, Chicago Mike. Did they find Alice on the moon? I don't know. Was Alice in chains at the time? No. I mean, that would be something. Alice on the moon. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Let's see. The agency's goal is to work with international partners to set up a new method of tracking time specifically for the moon that spacefaring nations agree to observe. So it's a moon time zone. But okay. A recent memo from the White House also directed NASA to map out its plans for this new timescale by December 31st, calling it foundational to renewed U.S. efforts to explore the lunar surface. The memo also asked that NASA implement such a system by the end of 2026, the same year the space agency is aiming to return astronauts to the moon for the first time in 5 decades. I thought it was 2027. Anyway, for the world's timekeepers, the coming months could be crucial for figuring out how to accurately keep lunar time and reach agreements on how, when, and where to put clocks on the moon. Such a framework will be crucial for humans visiting our closest celestial neighbor, Gramling told CNN. Astronauts on the moon, for example, are going to leave their habitats to explore the surface and carry out science investigations, she said. They're also going to be communicating with one another or driving their moon buggies while on the lunar surface. Quote, when they're navigating relative to the moon, Gramling said, time needs to be relative to the moon. Great. A brief history of Earth time. Oh my gosh, how long is this article? Holy cats, this is a long article. Whoa, of Einstein, and holy cow, what did I get myself into? All right, well, I'm going to attempt to be educational, I guess. Okay, voice, don't fail me now. A brief history of Earth time. Simple sundials, or stone formations, which track shadows as the sun passes overhead, mark a day's progression just as the shifting phases of the moon can log the passing of a month on Earth. Those natural timekeepers have kept humans on schedule for millennia. But perhaps since mechanical clocks gained traction in the early 14th century, clockmakers have grown ever more persnickety about precision. Exacting the measurement of seconds also grew more complicated in the early 1900s, thanks to Albert Einstein, the German-born physicist who rocked the scientific community with his theories on special and general relativity. Quote, darn that Einstein guy, he came up with general relativity, and many strange things come out of it, unquote, said Dr. Bruce Betts, chief scientist at the Planetary Society, a nonprofit space interest group. Quote, one of them is that gravity slows time down, unquote. General relativity is complicated, but in broad terms, it's a framework that explains how gravity affects space and time. Imagine that our solar system is a piece of fabric suspended in the air. Okay, I'm imagining it. That fabric is space and time itself, which, under Einstein's theories, are inextricably linked. And every celestial body within the solar system, from the sun to the planets, is like a heavy ball sitting atop the fabric. The heavier the ball, the deeper the divot it creates, warping space and time. Even the idea of an earthly second is a human-made concept that's tricky to measure. And it was Einstein's theory of general relativity that explained why time passes slightly more slowly at lower elevations, because gravity has a stronger effect closer to a massive object, such as our home planet. Aha! Scientists have found a modern solution to all the complications of relativity for timekeeping on Earth. To account for imperceptible differences, they have set up a few hundred atomic clocks at various locations across the globe. Atomic clocks are ultra precise instruments that use the vibration of atoms to measure the passage of time, and those clocks, in line with Einstein's theories, tick slower the closer to the Earth's surface they sit. The readings run from atomic clocks around the world can be averaged for a broad but accurate as possible sense of time for planet Earth as a whole, giving us Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. Still, occasionally, leap seconds are factored in to keep UTC in line with slight changes in Earth's speed of rotation. This methodical keeping of time helps make the modern world go round, metaphorically speaking, said Kevin Coggins, Deputy Associate Administrator and Program Manager for NASA's Space Communications and Navigation Program. Quote, if you've researched time on the Earth, you realize it is the critical enabler for everything: the economy, food security, trading, the financial community, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Even oil exploration. They use precise clocks, unquote, Coggins said. Well, part of that was not actually his quote, but still. Quote, it's in everything that matters in modern society, unquote. Space, time, the continual question. Is that the continual question? I thought it was less filling. Tastes great. If time moves differently on the peaks of mountains than the shores of the ocean, you can imagine that things get even more bizarre the farther away from Earth you travel. To add more complication, time also passes slower the faster a person or spacecraft is moving, according to Einstein's theory of special relativity. Astronauts on the International Space Station, for example, are lucky, said Dr. Bijunath Patla, a theoretical physicist with the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, in a phone interview. Though the space station orbits at about 200 miles, or 322 communist measurements above Earth's surface, it also travels at high speeds, looping the planet 16 times per day, so the effects of relativity somewhat cancel each other out, Patla said. For that reason, astronauts on the orbiting laboratory can easily use Earth time to stay on schedule. For other missions, it's not so simple. Fortunately, scientists already have decades of experience contending with the complexities. Spacecraft, for example, are equipped with their own clocks called oscillators, Gramling said. Quote, they maintain their own time, and most of our operations for spacecraft, even spacecraft that are all the way out at Pluto or the Kuiper Belt, like New Horizons, rely on ground stations that are back on Earth. So everything they're doing has to correlate with UTC. But those spacecraft also rely on their own kept time, Gramling said. Vehicles exploring deep into the solar system, for example, have to know, based on their own time scale, when they are approaching a planet in case the spacecraft needs to use that planetary body for navigational purposes, she added. For 50 years, scientists have also been able to observe atomic clocks that are tucked aboard GPS satellites, which orbit Earth at about 12,550 miles away, or about 1/19th the distance between our planet and the moon. Studying those clocks has given scientists a great starting point to begin extrapolating further as they set out to establish a new timescale for the moon, Patla said. Quote, we can easily compare GPS clocks to clocks on the ground, adding that scientists have found a way to gently slow GPS clocks down, making them tick more in line with Earth-bound clocks. Quote, obviously it's not as easy as it sounds, but it's easier than making a mess, unquote. I think I might be making a mess of this article by reading every single word. I'm only about halfway through this article now. Good gravy. For the moon, however, scientists likely won't seek to slow clocks down. They hope to accurately measure lunar time as it is, while also ensuring it can be related back to Earth time, according to Patla, who recently co-authored a paper detailing a framework for lunar time. But what if you're like on the top of a mountain on the moon versus deep in a crater on the moon? Won't the time be different? Won't you have the same issues as Earth, except that also... Okay, the study, for the record, also attempted to pinpoint exactly how far apart moon and Earth time are, as estimates have wavered between 56 and 59 microseconds per day. Oh man, those 3 microseconds make a difference. Literally, all right. Clocks on the moon's equator would tick 56.02 microseconds faster per day than clocks at Earth's equator, according to the paper. How much more do I need to read of this? Holy cats. You guys want me to keep going with this? Let me know in the chat. I mean, if you, I'm happy to keep reading it. It just seems like this is a very long article for what I thought was a very short piece of information. But in the meantime, I'll go to the chat here real quick. Advocatus, it could have gone to Jefferson Airplane and White Rabbit. Go ask Alice where she speaks. Oh, okay. I mean, I was thinking of Alice in Wonderland, but I wasn't really sure if there was some other kind of moon reference for Alice in Wonderland or something else. I don't know. Tony Giff, I kind of like the Chinese doing space exploration. They'll send cannon fodder people and the rest of the countries will learn. If they reveal the results of their missions. I mean, if anybody's going to keep a tight lid on the information coming out about their scientific explorations, it's going to be the Chinese. For sure. Asan, NASA just gave the guys who landed on the moon fancy wrist watches. I think we can get away with Casio Sports today. Probably. Read on, says Tier Alexander. Up to you, though, says Kieran. It's true. All right, well, let's learn something. Lunar clockwork. What scientists know for certain is that they need to get precision timekeeping instruments on the moon. To the moon. Exactly who pays for lunar clocks, which type of clocks will go, and where they'll be positioned are all questions that remain up in the air, Gramling said. Ha ha. Quote, we will have to work all of this out, she said. I don't think we know yet. I think it will be an amalgamation of several different things, unquote. Well, you can't go to the Swiss, who are the best clockmakers in the world. Or make it an international effort, but exclude China like everything else just to tick them off, you know. Atomic clocks, Gramling noted, are great for long-term stability, and crystal oscillators have an advantage for short-term stability. Can we afford to make some more atomic clocks? What? Quote, you never trust one clock, Gramling added, and you never trust two clocks. Okay, when do you get to a trusting of clocks then? Is it 3 or 17? Clocks of various types could be placed inside satellites that orbit the moon or perhaps at the precise locations on the lunar surface that astronauts will one day visit. As for price, an atomic clock worthy of space travel could cost around a few $1 million, according to Gramling, with crystal oscillators coming in substantially cheaper. So basically a rounding error on the budget of the United States on a given day. Okay. But Patlas said, you get what you pay for. Quote, the very cheap oscillators may be off by milliseconds or even tens of milliseconds, he added. Quote, and what that is important because for navigation purposes, we need to have the clock synchronized to tens of nanoseconds, unquote. Well, then I guess atomic clocks are the place to be. We're going to spend billions of dollars on this project inevitably anyway. So sure, pump out a few extra atomic clocks. Thank you again, Chicago Mike. My Alice reference is a Honeymovers reference. Oh, that Alice. Sorry. I mean, I watched some Honeymooners episodes with my parents when Nick at Night had them way back in the day. But you know, that show is a little bit before my time. Just a smidge. So when I think of Alice, I think of Wonderland or Lane Staley. There's, you know, one or the other. It's kind of it. I appreciate it either way. Thank you, Chicago Mike. And apologies for not getting the reference. I should be on the ball, as it were, with that more so. Okay, that story that I wanted to read is okay. Oh, you jerk. Sorry, hold on a second here. One of the stories I want to read is not letting me read it because they're asking for some kind of like, you know, subscription or something or other. So now I have to do something like turn it into a PDF before I can get it blocked out or whatever. Geez, all right. Let me do that real quick. Apologies. Live TV, everybody. Okay, I'll save that for later. All right, moving on back to clocks. Let's see. A network of clocks on the moon could work in concert to inform new lunar time scale, just as atomic clocks do for UTC on Earth. Sure. And then parenthetical, there will not, Gramling added, be different time zones on the moon. Quote, there have been conversations about creating different zones with the answer, no, she said, but that could change in the future, unquote. So it's not, you can't say there won't be because just right now there aren't. Okay. The new timescale would underpin an entire lunar network, which NASA and its allies have dubbed LunaNet. Oh, very creative, guys. That's great. Quote, you can think of LunaNet like the internet, or the internet and a global navigation satellite system all combined, Gramling said. It's a framework of standards that contributors to LunaNet such as NASA or the European Space Agency, would follow, unquote. That's the best you can come up with, LunaNet? God. Quote, and you can think of the contributors maybe as your internet service provider, Gramling said. I guess you could, because it's effectively the same function. Creating such a framework means bringing a lot of people across the world to the table. So far, Gramling said, conversations with U.S. partners have been very, very positive. Whatever that means. It's not clear whether NASA and its partners on this effort, which include the European Space Agency, will get a buy-in from nations that aren't among U.S. allies, such as China. I'm going to guess not. Gramling noted that those conversations would be held through international standard-setting bodies, such as the International Astronomical Union. I've never heard of it. A whole different mindset. Accurate clockwork is one matter, but how future astronauts living and working on the lunar surface will experience time is a different question entirely. Okay. On Earth, our sense of one day is governed by the fact that the planet completes one rotation every 24 hours, giving most locations a consistent cycle of daylight and darkened nights. On the moon, however, the equator receives roughly 14 days of sunlight, followed by 14 days of darkness. That's where the vampires want to go for half of the month. Quote, it's just a very, very different concept on the moon, Betts said, and NASA is talking about landing astronauts in the very interesting south polar region of the moon, where you have permanently lit and permanently shadowed areas. So that's a whole other set of confusion, unquote. How would you send like Alaskans from far north in Alaska, right? Where like, 30 days of night and everything. They'd probably be best equipped for that. It'll be challenging for those astronauts, Betts added. It's so different than Earth because it's not Earth. And it's just a whole different mindset. That will be true no matter what time is displayed on the astronauts' watches. Still, precision, Sean Connery's coming out of nowhere. Still, precision timekeeping matters, not just for the sake of scientifically understanding the passage of time on the moon, but also for setting up all the infrastructure necessary to carry out missions. The beauty of creating a timescale from scratch, Gramling said, is that scientists can take everything they have learned about timekeeping on Earth and apply it to a new system on the moon. And somebody's revving their engine out in the distance. Not only can they take everything they learned about timekeeping on Earth, but it's all that they have to go by because it's all that we've invented about timekeeping. They don't have an option to do otherwise. What? Okay. And if scientists can get it right on the moon, she added, they can get it right later on down the road if NASA fulfills its goal of sending astronauts deeper into the solar system. Quote, we are very much looking at executing this on the moon, learning what we can learn, so that we are prepared to do the same thing on Mars or other future bodies. You don't say. Are you telling me that the moon is a test bed for future space exploration? Okay, well, I mean, it's been long enough since NASA's done anything really dramatic as far as space exploration that I suppose you have to go back to 101 levels of interesting. But there you go. There's Clocks on the Moon, the full article. I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to get through that all. That was a lot to go through. But either way, let me move on to our next story. And as I zoom in on that, take a look at what's going on in the chat here. Johnny Blaze, no, it's Luna. What is? No, it's Luna. Let's see. Someone informed Sin and Polly that even CNN calls it the moon. Well, it's LunaNet now. There's LunaNet. Oh, man. Let's see. I sent an invite to this stream to somebody. I don't think they've seen it. I got a feeling that, X isn't really alerting about messages lately. I don't get alerts about my DMs anymore. I have to physically go there and check. It doesn't tell me if I have any. So maybe that's the case. Or maybe this person just hates me. I think they just hate me. Anyway, let's move on to training for America's lunar mission. NASA reveals footage of astronauts training in desert for moon mission, preparing for lunar exploration. Ooh, there's a picture of an astronaut doing moon stuff with grass. Woo! It's taken more than half a century, but NASA really is going back to the moon. I'll believe it when it happens. Some of the space agency's astronauts have been training in the northern Arizona desert for the looming Artemis 3 mission, which is currently slated to land in September of 2026. Decades of other U.S. space priorities, such as the space shuttle and building the International Space Station, along with the astronomical costs of sending astronauts to our natural satellite, have impeded such a return endeavor. Maybe. Or it's just trying to convince Congress and so on that it's worthy of investing and getting the American people excited about it and showing that there's some, return on investment to the people investing. Anyway, but after the successful launch of NASA's new mega rocket in 2022, the Space Launch System, the moon mission's wheels are turning, albeit slowly. That's because every component of the agency's new lunar campaign, dubbed Artemis, must be profoundly safe. Lives will be aboard. You don't say. NASA has released images of the astronauts' May 2024 training in the desert, including a recent view of NASA astronauts Kate Rubins and Andre Douglas simulating a nighttime spacewalk. The official Artemis 3 astronaut crew has yet to be announced. Well, I hope that Kate Rubins and Andre Douglas are at least on the list of potentials, because otherwise they're training for nothing. Or just reference material, I suppose. Training in the dark or twilight is essential, as the conditions mimic the dark, shadowy regions Artemis astronauts will explore. And I'm about to sneeze. So hold on a sec. And of course, as I say that, I don't sneeze. So it'll arrive when it does. Let's see. NASA is going to the moon's South Pole region, a place where the sun barely rises over the lunar hills. It's a world of profoundly long shadows and dim environs. The endeavor you see below is called the Joint Extravehicular Activity and Human Surface Mobility Test Team Field Test 5, or JET 5. JEAHSMTTFT5 becomes JET 5? Oh, okay. Picture. Here's some more pictures. We got pictures of astronauts in the desert and, road construction workers behind them just kind of watching. That's exciting. Then we have astronauts in the desert with a shopping cart. Sure, that works too. And we get another astronaut with no glass in his helmet. So right now he's, catastrophic decompression. But okay, sure, why not? Then we get the two astronauts in the desert pushing their shopping cart around. Yay! Look at all that lunar surface. Desert surface? I mean, I know there's grasses in the desert, but that just looks like a grassy hill in like California or something. All right, whatever works. NASA captured these images in a rugged region called the San Francisco. I was just making a joke about California. The San Francisco Volcanic Field. Yeah, when I look at that, I think volcanic, don't you? Grassy plains. The area astronauts are headed to is also quite rugged. As compared to the grassy plains of the San Francisco Volcanic Field, you're right. It's the moon. It's a heavily cratered region teeming with volcanic rocks. Crucially, they'll be hunting for ice deposits too. Quote, the ice deposits could also serve as an important resource for exploration because they are comprised of hydrogen and oxygen. You mean what water is comprised? That could be used for rocket fuel or life support systems, NASA explained. It could. Are you going to have a system by which to make use of such ice into turning it to rocket fuel by the time we get there, or anytime in the near future? Probably not. The moon may also one day serve as a lunar fuel depot, where after burning copious amounts of fuel during launch, spacecraft stop to fill up for deeper space missions. They may be headed to Mars, resource-rich asteroids, or beyond. It's true. It could happen. I guess we'll see if maybe, China corners the market on moon fuel before we get to it. That's not impossible. It's probable. Let's see. Tier Alexander, was that where the shooter was on the grassy knoll? Is it just in space? It could be. Let's see. Ranting Monkey, Twitter just told me you messaged me. I can't hang out, but I will listen. Oh, okay. Well, I see how it is. All right. Well, I'm glad Twitter at least alerted you. I wasn't sure you were getting my messages or anything, but okay. I'll just be here all by myself. I don't want to be. Okay, anyway. But that's my next to last article, my penultimate article, because what would be complete about talking about the moon without talking about conspiracy theories? Are you ready for conspiracy theories? Because someone has a conspiracy theory. It's Danica Patrick. You know who Danica Patrick is? Well, she's like a super hot racing girl who I think has some legal troubles, if I remember correctly. Ranting Monkey says, well, it told me when my messages were something else. Okay. Yeah, I don't get alerts for my DMs anymore. If I have to open my DM thing, but it doesn't tell me ahead of time that I have any. Only after I open it do I see that, oh, I've received messages. X is an adventure every day. But anyway, let's talk about Danica Patrick. You know, as we know, Danica Patrick is a brilliant scientist and historian. Also, Kiro Soldier, thank you so much for the happy, dancy, smiley Dogcat Fox who always loves me. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow.
There's a P.
Wow.
almost double clicked on that one. Not that it would be a bad thing, I suppose. Thank you so much, Kiro Soldier. Yes, I'm reminded that I am not alone. I have with me Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow.
Yes, no, I didn't forget you. I just, wish you'd go off to your little hovel and mind your own business when I'm busy with the people. You can just stay over there. No, there. Not there. That's the airlock. No, wait, don't, no, no. And you see, fortunately, you're too short to reach the handle. But, I imagine someday you'll figure it out. Anyway, yes, let's talk about Danica Patrick. Let's see, get over here. Danica Patrick believes the United States faked the moon landing. This is news, everybody. This headline was on several different publications. Slow day? I don't think it was, but here we go. Former IndyCar driver Danica Patrick isn't afraid to share conspiracy theories on social media. That's for sure. On Wednesday night, Patrick shared a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, where Rogan debated moon landing hoax theorist Bart Sibrel. Okay. Patrick made it clear that she's skeptical of the moon landing that took place in July of 1969. Quote, this is one of the conspiracies. I believe, Patrick wrote on Instagram. I don't care if you think I'm crazy. I already know I am. Judging by Patrick's post on Instagram, it's fair to say she might have interest in watching Fly Me to the Moon, a film releasing later this year about the 1960s space race. Or you just took advantage of this weird article to plug a film that's coming out that I've never heard of before. This is the second time this month that Patrick has shared a controversial opinion on social media. Controversial opinions on social media? Guys, have you ever done that before? Oh my God, only celebrities do that. Hi, Renting Monkey. A few weeks ago, she reposted a video of a conspiracy theory involving Disney and chemtrails. Oh man, I haven't heard about chemtrails in forever. I have a coworker who, for several weeks, was very excited to tell me everything he had learned about chemtrails. And every time he saw a contrail from a jet up in the sky, he would drag me over to the window and see, look, they're doing it again. And I'm like, tell me, just out of curiosity, what's in these chemtrails? And he says aluminum and benzene. And I'm like, aluminum and benzene. So like aluminum, the metal. He's like, yes. And these chemtrails have been released for how long over this area? For years. They've been doing it for years. I said, so there should be a ridiculous amount of aluminum dust in the soil at this point, right? You think somebody would have detected that by now? Or, maybe we'd be coughing up blood with all the aluminum dust we're ingesting as it gets kicked up on roadsides and everything else. And And he's looking at me like I'm from another planet. And of course, I'm looking at him for like he's from another planet. And there the twain shall meet. So that was the last time I heard about chemtrails. The video about Disney featured this caption, quote, Disney paid $60 million for an edit over their old movies to add stripes in the sky. Seems like a crazy amount of money for Disney to want to cover up the water vapor that planes leave behind, unquote. It probably won't be long before Patrick goes viral again for sharing a conspiracy take. Why did she go viral in the first place? Does anybody care about Danica Patrick anymore? Somebody in the chat tell me, is Danica Patrick some kind of like meaningful individual at this point in time? I mean, short of somebody who's really into former IndyCar drivers. Lexi Mads, my brother spreads the chems. He said they're dihydrogen and oxide, but don't tell anyone or he'll have to kill us all. Well, you know, on the basis of my coworkers' fears and such, I actually, just out of curiosity, I called up a local environmental testing organization. You know, they do tests of like waterways and things like that. And I explained to him, I had to be the most random call this guy got that day. And I was just like, hey, I got a weird question for you. My coworker says, yada, 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 yada. So in your testing of waterways and things like that, are you finding or have you found over the course of years like a significant presence or increasing or fluctuating presence of like aluminum and benzene in the groundwater and so on? And the guy's like, well, here's the thing. In addition to volunteering for this organization, I'm also a commercial pilot. And I was like, oh, interesting. He's like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, unless you're going to tell me something that, you know, the government's making you tell me, what is exactly in those contrails? And he's like, water vapor and fuel vapor. That's about it. And like, I figured, but you never know. I just thought I'd ask. He's like, yeah, no, it's fine. We don't find a whole bunch of aluminum in the water. Like, okay. Let's see. So yeah. Let's see. You're ridiculous lunatic. I'm confused. Grabs giant fly swatter. Fuck off, commies. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Anybody else? Not TikTok on the moon. Lunatic talk all the time. Oh, I like. Yeah, Danica Patrick. All I remember about Danica Patrick is like the image in my mind is of like pretty girl in IndyCar like jumpsuit, and I think it was blue or something. And then she had some legal troubles. I don't remember what they were. What were her? Unless I'm thinking of a different. Oh, maybe it was that soccer. Who was that soccer girl that got like domestic violence or whatever? Wasn't there like Hope's? Was it Hope Solo? Maybe that was it. Maybe that was it. Hold on. No, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, maybe it wasn't Danica Patrick. Maybe I'm thinking of Hope Solo. Wasn't she the one that like got domestic violence on her or something? Anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. And just for legal reasons, I'll say it might be my faulty memory and allegedly. There you go. Let's see. Any other moon news I can come up with here? I'll give it one more shot. One more shot for moon news. No, we talked about that. We talked about that. And we talked about that. So I guess that's the moon news, everybody. Let's see. Only 48 minutes into a stream. I don't know. Is there anything else? Renting Mikey confirms it was Solo who got that's what it was. I get all my female athletes mixed up, I guess. You know, or maybe Danica Patrick looks like Hope Solo. I can't remember what Hope Solo looks like. Either way. I don't know. Do I have any videos? I've got videos. Did I do a video? I can't do a TEDx because it's not a TEDx night. If I'm going to do a video, it's got to be something that's at least passingly short and weird. Sure. I got a short, weird video. You guys want a short, weird video? I mean, it pertains to education. Might be something worth looking at, I suppose, maybe, sort of. Oh, why not? Let me put on the old headphones here as I had them off for all the reading. Thank you, Kiro Soldier. Danica Patrick was also known to swear a lot. Well, that's fine. I can handle a woman in a competitive sport being a little blue in her language. Ranting Monkey. Whoops. I just watched a video on it 2 days ago. I'm not that smart. Video on what? The moon? Or what? Or Danica Patrick? I don't know. Let's see. Well, let's do a video. And if you can believe it, it's from our friends at the National Association of Independent Schools. You remember the National Association of Independent Schools? The Looney Tunes who are teaching kids nonsense? I'll get another space theme up here. All right, are you guys ready? Well, I don't know if you're ready for this. Y'all ready for this? No. How schools can support students as they shape their identities. Oh, boy.
I'm a professor of color, and I.
I'm a professor of color. Is that a discipline now? Is that a department? Because usually I hear somebody say I'm a professor of English, or I'm a professor of American history. No, I'm a professor of color. Oh, NAIS, you never disappoint.
I'm a professor of color, and I have this incredible luxury to teach at an institution that's predominantly students of color.
Oh, it's a privilege to teach at an institution that's predominantly students of color. Okay. Tell me more of your passive racial supremacy.
Working class, a lot of folks are the first in their family to go to college. What's become really clear in my years teaching there is that, and this is something I can relate to.
Is it based on color? Because it seems like you relate yourself and everybody around you based on skin color first. Is this something you relate to based on race? I just have to know. I have to know. Faustonia, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hey, Scribe, considering everyone else is talking the obvious today, it is nice that someone goes a different route and decides not to. Kudos. Well, plenty will be said of this day and the ramifications thereof in the days to come, especially since there will be a press conference tomorrow morning that will probably light even more political, social, media, controversial fires and things. And I could add to it, you know, if somebody does a stream later tonight to talk about the subject, I'm happy to contribute in some way, shape, or form. But I thought for tonight, as a change of pace, a little bit of an escape, do something different. But I thank you, Faustonia. Appreciate it. Also, you can also thank Faustonia yourself through the little super chat thanks little option you have now. Yay. Thank you, Faustonia. All right. Anyway, you can relate to something on the basis of
the stories that my students have, that they bring to the table, that they bring to the classroom. Those are often stories that you see in history books or you see on television.
Because they wouldn't be in history books because they're not historical figures. And if they're not on television, it's probably a good thing because most stories that get on television are about people doing bad things or having bad things happen to them. So, you know, I have a history. I have a personal story or seven that aren't in any history books and haven't been on TV. Oh, but I don't look the part, right? That's probably where you're not going to be able to relate to me, I'm guessing, right?
On television, you see on movies, marginalized voices actually should be stories that should be at the center because they have this capacity to teach the world about important themes like.
Yes, because themes within human experience are only really important if they're on the quote unquote margins. There's no common denominators that can be shared by lots of people, regardless of their station in life or otherwise. I feel like I've had something like this conversation previously with Tom Connors last night on TED Excellence, but who knows?
Like inequality or gender or racial justice.
Yeah, inequality, gender, and racial justice. Racial justice. Yes, everyone. Justice predicated on skin color. Okay. What do you teach in college again? Oh, wait. You're a teacher of color. So you teach color? That sounds about right, actually.
Or racial justice. What I try to do as an educator is give space for students to write about themselves, you know.
Write about themselves? You mean like as individuals? What? Who cares about individuality? You're proud and privileged to be in a college of students of color. That's the unifying theme, right?
No, I have so many of my assignments that are about, tell me about what it's like being a Mexican American growing up in LA.
A Mexican American growing up in LA. Why don't you ask them, what's it like for you, individual, not? Yeah, no, never mind. I guess that doesn't occur.
Going to the type of school you went to. Tell me about your interactions with your teachers. And a big part of it is just giving airtime during class for students to voice those stories
and dwell on their quote unquote identities, right? You're propping up elements of their makeup that say nothing about who they are. You could have two students who originated from Mexico, came to America one way or another, and then went to school. And they could have entirely different life stories, which neither of them have anything directly to do with their country of origin. But that's you don't see individuality, you see identity first, as I gather.
In kindergarten through 8th grade, I was lucky because I felt like my teachers gave us the opportunity to talk about our immigrant identity or talk about what it meant to be Filipino or Mexican.
Well, I mean, I don't know where you were born, but you're American. Being Filipino, if you're Filipino, if you're Mexican, you're Mexican. Right? I mean, you're American now, right? That's a nationality. That's not okay.
That was really great because what it taught me was that my experience coming from an immigrant family,
okay, and I don't know. Did our speaker come from the Philippines or is his family from the Philippines? Otherwise, he's an American. It always kind of gets me a little goofy with this sort of like hyphenated American type thing. If you're a citizen of America, you're an American. If you have dual citizenship, okay, but otherwise, why keep slotting people into cubby holes like this? Why not find common ground instead of looking for difference everywhere and wedging everything around us?
it had value in the context of the classroom.
Why?
I know that not all schools are like that. There are schools in which to be Latina or to be Asian American or to be Black is considered, in the eyes of teachers, a liability.
Really? A liability or an irrelevancy? I mean, I don't know. I could go on about constantly trying to find weight in someone's appearance or ethnicity and marking it as either good or bad, better or worse. Why don't we find a place where it doesn't matter? The individual matters. But no, he's a professor of color, so who cares what his name is, right?
You hear these same stories about how certain racial identities are associated with being smart and other racial identities are associated with being underachieving, or even worse, associated with being criminal.
Well, let's talk about the school to prison pipeline. Let's talk about math equity. Let's talk about all the programs that have been put in place over the last 5 or 6 years that specifically outline any culture or ethnicity not white as needing special consideration and lowered standards in order to keep up. How about we talk about that? Who is pushing the stereotypes? Who is undercutting student excellence and achievement? You know, the soft bigotry of low expectations. You might want to take a look at what programs and what philosophies are being pushed by your side of the proverbial aisle.
Criminal or gang members. And so kids are smart. And so they see the ways in which teachers and counselors interact with them. And those meanings get created based off the way teachers and counselors treat them.
No. Kids are not smart. Kids are impressionable. And if you start highlighting race or gender as the things to both, assess someone by and value them on, as you are doing right now, as you did in the very first words of your introduction here, yes, that will make an impression on them. And that's how their worldview will be shaped if they don't have parents who are keeping an eye on them. You just don't see what you are doing, do you?
I've been lucky that I've met educators that teach elementary school or middle school or high school who actually try to flip the script on that and
Flip the script on what? Not relying on racial stereotypes? Well, you're the one that was celebrating the fact that you were in a school of particular skin colors. You're still dwelling on a heritage from a different country and divvying people up on the basis of different countries they're no longer residents of. I don't know. Just saying. Come on, go.
grip on that and see racial diversity as an asset. They do things like teach about civil rights icons. They teach literature that's written by writers of color.
Listen to yourself. You decry racial stereotypes, but you want to center racial identities. You want to elevate the value of someone on the basis of what they look like. Oh, but racial stereotypes are bad, guys.
You really get to see how race can actually play a positive role because students see their, being Latino or Latinx, they see their blackness, they see their Filipino-ness as something to be proud of, as this identity that's full of this rich history.
Really? Okay, well then on that basis then you would have no problem with someone espousing their white pride, would you? It's the same thing, right? I mean, their skin color obviously denotes something of an achievement, right? Something to be prideful of, something to be proud of. They didn't do anything to earn their skin color. It's just a matter of biology and who your parents were and looked like. But no, you want to find strength and power and pride in skin color? Well, great. I mean, it's worked out so well elsewhere. Why not promote it in elementary school? I really, sometimes I'm glad I'm not a father. I don't know what I'd be doing if I had a kid coming home every day telling me what the schools were teaching them. And especially if educators such as these were in charge, because man alive.
I definitely see opportunities for schools to take advantage of the racial diversity that's there.
Oh no, they take advantage of it. They take advantage of it in donations and, pity parties and struggle sessions and affinity groups and ERGs and cultural competency and on and on and on and on, especially since you're part of the National Association of Independent Schools. Fundraising for virtue is really all you have to work with a lot of times, don't you?
There in positive ways.
Mm-hmm. Now, there you go. Another brilliant entry from NAIS. I've got several videos on NAIS that I've done over the years on my channel under the playlist called Curriculum of Fear. They're scattered amongst there. A few of them are still, I think, golden oldies. I especially like Grading for Equity and the Point Fairy. There's this one, the thumbnail, I don't have it in front of me, but the thumbnail's got two teachers on there, two educators. And throughout the deal, they start talking about, grading and our grading system and everything else is really unbalanced and unfair. And so really we need to do this. I don't want to give it all away. It's great. I think it's one of my better videos. But yeah, just look up like Grading for Equity or something like that on my channel or in the playlist. And you'll see some classic NAIS thinking. It's great. But with that, everybody, I think I'm going to start wrapping things up. I just want to do something a little off, a little relaxed, a little laid back for the evening after doing TEDx yesterday and all the political stress of today. I will leave that to that. There's going to be plenty of streams and shows and videos and news reports in the upcoming days about it, especially tomorrow with a particular press conference from a particular person who's got probably a lot to say about the day's events. And I'm certain that either tonight or in the near future, Ranting Monkey will do a stream talking about Trump and elsewise. So be sure to check out Ranting Monkey's channel on YouTube. Did Advocatus Diaboli just find the link to that video? Thank you, Advocatus. Appreciate it. So in the chat right now, guys, there's a YouTube link from Advocatus Diaboli for the grading for equity video I mentioned. I'll post that same link on the Discord server for reference in case you want to get that. And as far as the Discord is concerned, there's a link to the Discord in the chat right now. If you'd like to join the Discord server, just have to click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word tells me that you actually watched the stream and have thus earned the right, the entitlement, the privilege of joining the Discord server. And today's secret word is moon. Just say hello, moon. Not good night, moon. But if you say good night, moon, I'll figure that you also watch the stream. Hello, moon, and you will be able to join the Discord server as a full member, a full lunarian, as every rank on the Discord server is some kind of moon thing, mostly. I think actually there might be only 2 ranks, like lunarian, moderator, and me, king of the moon. But otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the fundraisers at the top of the chat box, excuse me, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciated. There will be a Sunday stream this Sunday, if you can believe it, at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, where I'll talk about a thing. I don't know what it'll be yet. Maybe I'll really blow your minds and make it a TEDx. I don't know. It's my channel. I can do what I want. Dang it. I'm going to start my own moon colony with blackjack and hookers. Anyway, everyone, hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday and Friday ahead of you. Hope you have a good weekend. Otherwise, hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Oh, wait. Alan Thyler coming in at the last. Alan, you thought you could get away with it? You thought you could donate with the good job, Dog Cat Fox, and you think I would have ended it just before then? Haha, I caught you.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you thought you could get by me, Alan Thyler. But I'm too quick on the draw even for you. So there. You can't stop me. I'm...